The fight was over before anyone decided it had begun. No punches were counted. No damage needed explaining. For seconds passed, long enough for confusion, not long enough for resistance. Those inside the elevator understood immediately that force had not been met with force. What followed was silence. And later, careful retellings by witnesses who struggled to describe how something so brief could settle the matter completely. The elevator was not chosen. It was inherited by circumstance, the way certain environments impose themselves without warning. A narrow metal enclosure, walls close enough to feel without reaching, air that carried sound too clearly and offered no direction to step away. Those who were there remembered the stillness first, not calm, anticipation. The kind that forms when bodies occupy more space than the room comfortably allows. No one spoke. There was no reason to. The ride was supposed to be brief. Bruce Lee stood among them without distinction. He did not take a dominant position. He did not retreat into a corner. His posture was neutral, balanced, as if the space had not changed the requirements of movement at all. To an untrained eye, nothing about him suggested readiness. The other man filled the elevator differently. His presence leaned forward, shoulders set wider than necessary, a confidence that relied on proximity and volume rather than words. Witnesses would later describe him as already committed to confrontation, to intimidation, to the idea that momentum belonged to whoever pressed first. No formal exchange occurred. There were no insults recorded accurately enough to repeat. What mattered was not what was said, but what was assumed. The assumption was that escalation, once begun, could only move in one direction. Elevators compress intent. There is no space to circle, no distance to calculate from afar. Reaction time shortens. Options disappear. In that environment, force is usually amplified, not diminished. Even small movements carry consequence. Those present understood this instinctively. The tension did not rise gradually. It arrived intact. Several witnesses later admitted they had already prepared themselves to intervene, despite knowing how little room there was to do so safely. Lee's attention appeared diffuse. He did not fixate on the aggressor's face or hands. His gaze moved briefly, taking in the room as a whole, the floor, the spacing, the balance of weight. It was not observation for curiosity's sake. It was calibration. No one noticed him brace. There was no shift into a recognizable stance, no tightening that would have signaled readiness to those watching. If anything, he seemed less engaged than the man advancing toward him. That contrast mattered. In confined spaces, fear often announces itself early. Confidence, too. Here, only one was visible. The imbalance shaped expectations before anything occurred. The elevator continued its descent. Each floor passed without acknowledgement. The hum of machinery filled the silence, steady and indifferent. Time felt suspended, not because it slowed, but because it narrowed. By the moment the aggressor finally moved with intent, the environment had already made its decision. There would be no prolonged exchange, no room for error, no opportunity to recover from excess. The witnesses did not yet know what would happen, but they understood in that instant that whatever occurred would have to end quickly, or not at all. Violence often begins before contact. It establishes itself through posture, through the way one body claims space at the expense of others. In the elevator, the assumption of violence arrived fully formed, carried by the man who believed momentum was already on his side. He did not need to announce himself. His size did that work for him. So did his proximity. The confidence he carried was not subtle, and it did not require proof. In environments like this, intent is often mistaken for authority, and few challenge that mistake until it is too late. Witnesses later struggled to describe his expression accurately. Some remembered impatience. Others recalled something closer to certainty. What they agreed on was that he expected compliance, not negotiation, not resistance. The elevator, in his mind, had already decided the outcome. Bruce Lee offered nothing to oppose this expectation. His calm was not performative. It did not attempt to neutralize tension or escalate it. It simply remained. His breathing stayed even, his posture unchanged. There was no visible preparation for impact. This unreadable stillness unsettled the room in ways that were difficult to articulate. Those accustomed to confrontation expect signals: fear, defiance, calculation. Lee provided none. He did not mirror the aggressor's energy, nor did he withdraw from it. Authority in this moment was being misread. The aggressor's confidence was visible, and therefore assumed to be dominant. Lee's restraint appeared passive, and therefore dismissible. The imbalance shaped expectations before a single movement occurred. Several witnesses recalled thinking the same thing, that if violence happened, it would be brief but damaging, that intervention would be required, that the smaller man would need help. Lee did not correct these assumptions. He did not speak. He did not reposition himself to create distance. His lack of response was not indifference, but timing. Action, if taken too early, would have validated the aggressor's control of the moment. The aggressor closed the remaining space deliberately, not rushing, not hesitating, the kind of approach meant to assert inevitability. In confined spaces, this tactic often succeeds by default. Lee's calm did not change. If anything, it deepened. Those watching noticed his attention narrow, but his body remained relaxed. There was no tension to read, no warning to react to. This was the final imbalance. One man believed authority came from intent and size. The other had already accepted the environment's constraints and adjusted accordingly. When movement finally occurred, it would not be reactive. It would be precise, immediate, and already finished before the assumption of violence had time to justify itself. In that final moment before contact, the space seemed to contract further. The elevator had already removed options. Now it removed time. What remained was a narrow window in which intention would become action, without appeal or delay. No one spoke. There was nothing left to say that would alter the trajectory. The witnesses later described a collective awareness, an unspoken agreement that negotiation had passed its threshold. Whatever was about to happen would not be stopped by words. The expectation was simple and familiar. Force would decide the outcome. In confined spaces, this belief feels reasonable. Power has fewer variables to contend with. Size closes distance faster. Momentum appears decisive. Several witnesses shifted their weight instinctively, not to intervene yet, but to prepare for impact, for bodies colliding, for imbalance, for the sudden chaos that violence usually brings. They anticipated noise. They anticipated struggle. Bruce Lee did not move, at least not in any way that registered as movement. His stillness was not frozen. It was settled. Those watching could not later recall him bracing or flinching. It was as if he had already accounted for the next few seconds and found no reason to rush them. The aggressor's focus narrowed visibly. His attention fixed on Lee, excluding everything else. The walls, the witnesses, the consequences beyond the immediate moment. This narrowing is common before violence. It simplifies the situation, reducing it to opposition. What he did not appear to register was the environment's indifference. The elevator did not favor strength or aggression. It favored efficiency, punished excess. Any movement that required space, wind-up, or recovery would be compromised immediately. Lee's attention moved differently. Witnesses later struggled to explain it, but some noted that he did not seem locked onto the aggressor's face or shoulders. His awareness appeared broader, less emotional, as if the entire space, not just the threat, was being read as one system. The seconds stretched only in memory. In reality, they passed quickly, almost without sensation. There was no dramatic pause, no cinematic delay. Just a brief alignment of circumstances reaching their limit. At that point, Escape was no longer an option. The doors were closed. The proximity absolute. Whatever resolution came would have to be immediate and contained. There would be no prolonged exchange, no chance to reset. The expectation of force settled fully into the room. And with it, the belief that what followed would be loud, messy, and difficult to undo. None of the witnesses anticipated silence. The movement did not announce itself. There was no sharp intake of breath, no visible acceleration that warned those watching to look more closely. What occurred unfolded inside the space of 4 seconds, measured later only because witnesses tried, unsuccessfully, to understand how little time it required. Lee moved first, but not forward. The initial adjustment was subtle, almost dismissible. A shift of weight, a slight change in angle that altered the relationship between bodies without appearing to do so. To anyone unfamiliar with close-range control, it would not have registered as action at all. The aggressor's intent met absence. What he reached for, whether balance, leverage, or dominance, was no longer where he expected it to be. His forward pressure continued, but its target had already changed position by a margin too small to notice and too large to recover from. Contact occurred briefly, not as a strike delivered with force but as a placement. Lee's hands did not swing. They arrived. One controlled a point of balance. The other redirected momentum already in motion. There was no visible struggle for dominance, only a quiet correction. The body follows where balance is taken. Within the confines of the elevator, this principle asserted itself immediately. The aggressor's posture collapsed inward, not violently, but decisively. His strength had nowhere to express itself without structure to support it. Witnesses recalled the sound or the lack of it. There was no impact noise consistent with a fight, no collision with walls, no shout. The elevator remained strangely calm, as if refusing to acknowledge that anything extraordinary had occurred. Lee did not pursue. The moment control was established, it was released. There was no follow-up, no demonstration meant to finalize superiority. The action stopped exactly when resistance ceased to function. The aggressor stood unbalanced, then corrected himself slowly. Not injured in any visible way, but altered. The confidence that had filled the space moments earlier had nowhere to settle. He did not attempt to re-engage. The 4 seconds ended without punctuation. No final gesture marked their conclusion. The elevator simply continued its descent, uninterrupted. The doors remained closed. The space returned to stillness. Those present needed time to recognize resolution. They had prepared for chaos and received containment instead. The absence of excess made the outcome difficult to process. Lee resumed his original posture, neutral, unremarkable, as if nothing had required correction at all. The moment passed without acknowledgement, but it did not disappear. The silence that followed was not heavy. It was orderly. The kind that settles when a situation resolves itself without leaving debris behind. No one spoke immediately, not out of fear, but because there was nothing left to address. The aggressor did not lash out. He did not attempt to recover authority through volume or posture. Whatever structure had supported his confidence moments earlier was gone, removed without force and without insult. He stood upright but not forward. There was no humiliation in his posture. No visible injury invited pity or ridicule. His collapse was internal, precise, and therefore private. Witnesses later noted this detail with care. The moment did not take anything from him that could not be returned by reflection. Lee did not look at him, not pointedly, not dismissively. He did not assert dominance through eye contact or withdrawal. He simply existed in the same space, unchanged. This absence of acknowledgement carried more weight than confrontation ever could. The elevator reached its destination. The doors opened as they were meant to, without urgency. For a brief moment, no one moved. The world outside the confined space felt distant, irrelevant. When the aggressor stepped out, he did so without haste. There was no attempt to reclaim presence. He did not look back. The encounter had ended without requiring closure. Only after the doors closed again did the witnesses begin to process what they had seen. There was no shared reaction, no exchanged glances meant to confirm disbelief. Each person absorbed the outcome privately, recalibrating their understanding in silence. What unsettled them was not the speed of the resolution. It was the absence of force. Dominance, they realized, had not been established by overpowering resistance, but by rendering it unnecessary. The environment had played its part. In real space, without room for theatrics, effectiveness became visible in a way that theory could not replicate. Control had proven quieter than expected. No one congratulated Lee. There was no reason to. He had not performed for them. He had corrected a situation and returned it to equilibrium. Applause would have misunderstood the nature of what occurred. As the elevator continued its routine, the witnesses carried the moment with them. Not as a story to tell immediately, but as a question that lingered about what strength actually required and how little of it needed to be shown. The aftermath did not demand attention, but it did not release it either. The story did not travel quickly. When it did, it moved without urgency, passed between people who understood the importance of accuracy over drama. Details were kept sparse. Time was mentioned only approximately. The number of seconds varied slightly, but the outcome did not. Years later, the incident was rarely framed as a fight. Those who spoke of it avoided that word. They described it instead as a correction, a moment when escalation was stopped without being escalated in return. The distinction mattered. What endured was the instructional quality of the moment. Not because it was taught formally, but because it answered a question many carried without articulating. What happens when force meets efficiency in a space where excess cannot hide? Lee did not reference the incident publicly. There was no benefit in doing so. To elevate it would have reduced it. The lesson functioned precisely because it was not extracted or labeled. In training spaces years later, the influence appeared indirectly. Instructors emphasized balance before strength. They spoke about position without invoking dominance. Drills were shortened. Movements became more economical. These changes were not attributed to a single source, but they aligned with what had been witnessed. The aggressor's role faded from the story, not out of disregard, but out of respect. He was not cast as a villain. He was remembered as a participant in a moment that resolved itself without requiring defeat. His anonymity preserved the lesson's focus. What transformed the incident into legend was its restraint. There was no image to circulate, no narrative climax to reenact. The story resisted embellishment because its power depended on precision. Any excess would have distorted it. Over time, the comparison that had once driven curiosity, strength versus speed, size versus control, lost its urgency. The framework itself felt outdated. Context replaced hierarchy. Efficiency replaced display. Those who encountered the story later often reacted with skepticism, until they trained long enough to recognize the pattern it described. The moment did not demand belief. It revealed itself through practice. In the end, the elevator became incidental. What mattered was not the setting, but the principle demonstrated within it, that mastery does not announce itself, and resolution does not require conquest. The story remained, not as a spectacle remembered, but as an understanding carried forward, quiet, complete,